So my sister and I have tickets to see the Killers this September. And if I know anything about going to concerts, it's that they're so much more enjoyable when you really know the band as well as their music. So we decided that we want to go through each of the Killers albums in order so that we can become semi-Killers experts before we go to the concert. This is The Killers Revisited. So The Killers' second album, Sam's Town, released in 2006. What are your immediate thoughts on this?
You just play it and it just feels like one continuous thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I was listening to it in the car and not really paying attention to when the song changes were, I'd get halfway through it and be like, how many songs do I listen to? I had no idea how many, it's comfortable.
It is. I prefer this album over Hot Fuss. I think it's better, but I like albums.
Right.
I do think Hot Fuss has better songs on it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think their progression as a band in this album, and I think the feel of this album and the structure of it is just better.
I think it's a very reflective album.
Yes.
And I think that's a natural thing with a sophomore album of especially when you have your first one, rockets you into such a famous level, It's natural to look back and think about, how did we get here? How did this happen? So it is very much they said a lot of it was about Vegas.
Yeah.
And the two main guys, the two founders, are from Vegas. So it was thinking about those experiences growing up and just the feel of that place.
Yeah.
And it is a very, all the things that we've watched and read, the idea of America, you feel that.
It is, yeah. I've read that they named it Sam's Town after the bar and casino that they lived across from for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But they kind of went with that because, the Beatles had Abbey Road and Penny Lane named after real places.
Yeah.
And they wanted to do the same thing with Vegas.
Mm-hmm. I did think it was interesting looking at the reception of this album, how varied because it was I'd read one and it was this is the most amazing album that's ever been written, and then Rolling Stones only gave it 2 stars.
Yeah.
But then in 2009, the readers of Rolling Stone voted this the most underrated album of the decade.
Wow, really?
So Rolling Stones gave it 2 stars, but then at the end of the decade, the readers were like, nope, you underrated it.
But I would say The Killers are going to be one of those bands.
Yeah.
Because right now, they are one of those bands that, with you, they're huge. Mm-hmm. They've got a ton of big songs, but a lot of people don't know that it's them.
Right, yeah.
So a lot of people aren't giving them that kind of credit.
Yeah.
But I say, 10 years after they break up, oh man.
Oh yeah.
I think this album really... that first album is great. It really shot them into stardom. Mm-hmm. This one was okay, they can keep at it. They can keep doing it.
It's sustainable.
Yeah, it wasn't just a random hit, you know. It's a good sophomore album in how they keep with a lot of the same stuff. A lot of their sound from the first one is still there, but they do progress a lot in this. They do add a lot in there to make it bigger and better. And they nailed it as a sophomore album. It's great.
When I was looking at reviews, John Bon Jovi, talking about this album specifically, he was talking about just what a great writer Flowers is, and he said he's got a very old head on young shoulders, which at this time he was 24.
Yeah.
When this album came out, he was only 24 and he was writing all these songs, so I thought that was cool.
Yeah. A 24-year-old writing when you were young.
Yeah, right.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
First track, title
Sam's
track,
Town. Yeah.
Sam's Town.
Yeah.
Very weird track. It's very different, very varied, lots of different sounds happening, and I think that was intentional.
Yeah.
I think that was very much here's what we've been doing. These are all the things that we've been working on. You heard us the first time. You know what we sounded like then, but now you're seeing what we're really capable of.
Yeah.
Immediately, and I like that. But I like Sam's Town for as weird as it is.
Yeah, I do like it, and it was where I caught, on probably the third listen through was when I started catching that concept, because he says, sick of all my judges, scared of what they'll find. I'll make it as long as somebody takes me home. So it's the idea of like, I'm sure they were dealing with a lot more exposure, and with that comes a lot more criticism than they were used to. So you have that feeling of, can I get back to the comfort of where I was before? So I see the beginning of that concept of reflecting back to where I came from.
Interesting that it comes before interlude.
Yeah.
I view, like, the more I listen to this album, the more I view it as a show. Like it feels very Broadway.
Yeah, because this is like, Sam's Town is like, you open up on the set of Sam's Town, and it's like, this is what the town looks like.
Sam's Town is the song that has none of the main characters in it.
Right.
It is only the townspeople of wherever this is
it's
based.
Totally the ensemble.
Yes.
Yeah.
Introducing you to everything. Interlude is where you're like, this is our story.
Yeah, because they come in and they're like, welcome to our town.
Yes.
You know, like, we're glad you're here. We're going to show you
exactly.
around.
It's like Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah.
You know, you have the Bonjour song, which is introducing you to the town, and then interlude is this is our main players, our main characters, and I love that. I'm such a nerd about things like that in music. I love concept albums.
Yep. Yeah, it is very much. I'm glad you said that, because it is very much an opening scene.
It is.
Show.
Then we get When You Were Young. Wonderful.
I think it's a perfect song.
I think it's wonderful.
Like, the first album had Mr. Brightside, and it's great, but this is just better. I don't know.
It's better.
It's like layered in a way that Mr. Brightside is not.
I think
it's just,
this might be my favorite of their songs. It's up there. It really is wonderful. It is almost perfect.
And we just watched the video. And I was reading up on that, because the video, to me, doesn't match the song. Like, they didn't feel the same to me.
It's weird.
But Flowers said that. He said, the guy that directed the video was Anthony something, and he said, Anthony's vision of this song is not my vision of this song. Like, it's two different takes.
Which is a very common thing in bands. Like, I remember when Under Oath came back from their hiatus, and they had a bunch of the big members back and everything. They had this really great video that was like thin with all this flashing lights and everything, and it was sick. And I remember there was an interview with Spencer, and he was like, yeah, people tell me how great that video is, but we had nothing to do with that. We just showed up.
Right.
I'm sure that a lot of that happens, especially when you're this big of a band.
Yeah. The premise of the video is a kind of snapshots of a relationship, and a woman is cheated on by her husband, and so it shows, like, it goes almost backwards to the origin of their relationship. And there's actually an alternate ending, like that ending of the original ending of the video shows the two of them together on the mountaintop, but their alternate ending, she jumps off.
Interesting.
Yeah, and that's very hopeless. And the song to me isn't hopeless. It's not hopeless, no. It's like, he's coming.
Yeah.
Which comes back to that Mormon thing.
Yes.
This is one of many religious undertones.
Are they, aren't they? Yeah.
He at least has a lot of those thoughts.
If you haven't watched, Netflix has a series called Song Exploder. They'll pick an artist and one song and talk about it for 20 minutes, and it's wonderful. If I could get them to do that on like a band's entire album, or better, an entire discography, that would be amazing. There is an episode on When You Were Young, and in it he talks about the meaning of it, and he's talking about how it's supposed to be he's talking about himself. He's talking about him becoming the man he wants to be, and how that's not happening the way he expected, and I really like that. It is a very hopeful song, and man, I love this song.
It's a perfect song.
Love this song.
It's a perfect song.
It's so good. And then we get Bling. I think this is the most forgettable of the entire album.
I think so too. I did write down one line. He says, "How do you know that you're right if you're not nervous anymore?" And I think that's an interesting line. But other than that,
For Reasons Unknown is good. It's very catchy.
It might be my favorite song on the album.
Really?
I know that I said When You Were Young is a perfect song.
Yeah.
But I think this is my favorite. And I can't explain why. I just really like it.
Well, I think For Reasons Unknown and another one later on the album are real indicators of where they were headed next. Because they, in the next few albums, especially about 3 albums after this, they're getting real poppy and synthy. And I think that there's a few moments on this album, especially this song, where you're like, okay, I see where this came from now. No, I love For Reasons Unknown. I think it's a really good song.
The message of this song is I am changing as a person, and I don't really know why. Like, I don't recognize who I am right now. It's very different than who I used to be, but there's no real reason why it's happening. It's just happening.
Yeah.
And I'm 30, so that's, I get it.
Yeah.
Gone through that a couple times.
Yeah.
I just like it.
Read My Mind is good.
Flowers called that one the best song he's ever written.
Really?
Yeah, it was like Q magazine or something like that. He said that.
Maybe I need to look further into that.
Maybe. It's like Jane Austen said that Pride and Prejudice was her baby. Maybe this is like his Pride and Prejudice.
Maybe. Then we get Uncle Johnny. I don't think Uncle Johnny is a great song, but I love the guitar in it.
It sounds different.
It sounds way different.
Like you get to this one and you're like, oh, this was the moment, I think, when I was just kind of blindly listening to it of like, okay, wait, this is different. Like,
yeah.
I've listened to a few songs at this point because it stopped. It doesn't not flow with it. It just changes the tone.
I think it's a good example of what this album does well, because with it being so cohesive, it's also, I think, more diverse than Hot Fuss is. I think there's a lot more happening, which is even more impressive that they make it all flow together so well.
Yeah. And this, like, it's like, this sounds different, but it's a killer song. Like, it's not, it doesn't feel like it shouldn't be there.
Yes.
It's just like, okay, we're trying something new.
I'm really reaching into some of that rockier roots.
Yeah.
But, no, I like that song.
It fits well with the reflection theme or concept,
Absolutely.
I guess, because it's not just the places, but specific people, and this is a specific person that impacted me in some way. Maybe not a great way.
Yeah.
Because it is like a villain song, but
it's a cautionary tale.
Yeah.
Bones. I love Bones. I think it's wonderful.
Yeah.
I think it's fantastic. This one is a real indicator of where they're headed, I think.
Yeah.
It sounds like a lot of their newer stuff. I love this song. I think it's fantastic. It's so good. We watched the video, directed by Tim Burton.
Yeah, which you can tell.
You can tell. Lots of clips from older movies. You've got Creature from the Black Lagoon. You've got, what is it, Johnny and the Argonauts? Something like that. That's where the skeletons at the beginning are.
Oh.
But I noticed the girl in it is Devin Aoki, sister of Steve Aoki. But if you ever watch Too Fast, Too Furious, she's Sookie.
Of course.
If you remember the pink S2000 that jumps the ramp at the beginning, it's her.
Nice.
I know. This video is one that brought it to mind. We're in the mustache era. Most of them have facial hair, but Brandon has that little...
Very bold hair choices.
Yes. There's a lot of disco in this album. And this song made me really point that out. There's a lot of horns in it and stuff. But there's like, everyone talks about how this album, they brought in a lot of Springsteen, they brought in a lot of new wave stuff. But there's a lot of disco. A lot of it. Which I'm fine with. I like disco. A little bit of funk thrown in, especially disco drumming.
Yeah. I think they're just playing with so many influences.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, 2 albums in, you're still figuring out who you are, what your sound is. So they're playing with so many things, but it doesn't feel disjointed. You know, like sometimes when a band will play with different sounds, it's like, okay, this song is this, and this song is this, but they blend so many things so well that you, every time you listen to it, you're like, oh, I didn't catch that before.
Yeah. So then we get My List. Yeah, it's there. It's good.
Yeah, it's not bad.
It's not bad. There's not a bad song. But it's all right. It's there. This River is Wild. I like
song.
This River is Wild. I think it's really good.
Song. They really do this a lot, but it's like, it feels like they had 3 really good songs, and they're like, let's just layer them on top of each other. Let's just make it all one song. That's what it feels like. Because I'm like, there's like so many layers here, and all of them are good, and you're making them work together so well. And
then we get Why Do I Keep Counting? More depressing than the rest of it, I think. Interesting for the end.
Yes.
Yeah. Because they decided to not end on a hopeful note. So I don't know, but it's good.
He said, if all our days are numbered, then why do I keep counting? Which is where the title comes from.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's a really cool line.
It's a really good line. I wonder how many people have that tattooed.
I don't know.
Show us your killer tattoos.
Yeah.
And by killer tattoos, I mean from the band The Killers. I don't mean your killer tattoos.
As in an adjective.
As in an adjective of, man, my tattoo's killer. Or a tattoo of a killer. I don't want either of those.
The Killers.
The Killers.
Tattoos.
Tattoos of The Killers. However, if you have a tattoo that is like serial killers replacing the members of The Killers, that'd be cool. Tattoo idea for somebody.
That would be...
Or a t-shirt. Make that t-shirt. I'm not talented enough to make that t-shirt, but one of you is.
And then we get the exit lude.
And then we get exit lude, which is
like, thanks for coming.
Yeah, and it's the same thing as the interlude.
Yeah.
They are the same song.
Yes.
Just expanded upon.
These sound Beatle-y to me.
There's a lot of Beatle-y moments in this.
Well, I think it's the four of them singing in unison.
Well,
sounds
and
Beatle-y.
it's also with this being a show, it feels like Sgt. Pepper's.
It does feel like Sgt. Pepper's.
Because Sgt. Pepper's is a show.
Yeah.
They're putting on a show for things. And they have an entrance and an exit.
Yeah.
So it makes sense. This is a good example. Ooh, I just got whiskey in my eye. But no, I think this is a good example of why you should listen to albums. There's so many songs on this album that you wouldn't care about without the rest of the album. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what makes a great album.
Yeah.
Because like a lot of albums, you know, they're written to be like, we want all of these songs to be hits. Whatever isn't a hit, oh well. And when you make it like this, it rewards listeners. And it's fantastic.
Yeah.
And I love it. Great album. Great album.
Great band.
Great band. Great band.
I'm only 2 albums in, but...
Tell us what you think of Sam's Town. Do you love it? Do you hate it? Do you think it's mediocre? Because that seems to be everyone's opinions on this album. But thanks for watching. And, I don't know, go listen to The Killers.